Michael Jackson was more than just the king of pop. To the world, he was a dazzling superstar, a record-breaking entertainer whose music, dance, and creativity changed history. But away from the stage lights and screaming crowds, Michael lived a very different role, that of a loving, protective father to his three children, Prince, Paris, and Blanket Jackson. Behind the high walls of Neverland Ranch, his kids experienced a childhood unlike anyone else on Earth, magical, mysterious, but also deeply complicated. For years, Michael worked tirelessly to shield them from the harsh glare of the media. Masks, veils, and bodyguards became part of their everyday lives. It was a strange reality, but to the children it was simply normal. Yet when Michael's sudden death in June 2009 shocked the entire world, their lives were forever changed. Overnight, three young children, just 12, 11, and 7 years old, were forced into the spotlight and into a painful new chapter of their lives. This is the real story of what happened to Michael Jackson's children, their struggles, their triumphs, their search for identity, and the ways they've carried forward their father's legacy. Let's begin with the youngest, Blanket Jackson. Blanket was born on February 21, 2002, through a surrogate whose identity has never been revealed. From the beginning, he was the most mysterious of Michael's children. His unusual name, Blanket, became the subject of endless jokes and media scrutiny. And when Michael, in a shocking moment, dangled baby Blanket over a Berlin hotel balcony in 2002, it created one of the most infamous scandals of his career. Michael later admitted it was a terrible mistake, a moment of poor judgment in front of screaming fans. But for Blanket, that incident would be linked to his name for the rest of his life. Despite the public controversies, inside Neverland, Blanket was adored. Michael spoiled him with adventures, playtime, and constant attention. Neverland wasn't just a house, it was a fantasy world. There were amusement park rides, animals from around the world, and movie theater screenings at all hours. For a little boy like Blanket, it was paradise. But that paradise didn't last. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died of cardiac arrest. Blanket was only 7 years old. The world watched as this little boy, hidden for so long, walked into the Staples Center for his father's memorial, clutching his grandmother's hand. He was terrified, fragile, and suddenly exposed to millions. After Michael's death, custody of all three children went to their grandmother, Katherine Jackson. At nearly 80 years old, Katherine became responsible for raising three grieving children. They moved into the family estate in Encino, California. For Blanket, the transition was jarring. From the magical world of Neverland, he was now thrust into a regular home, attending school and living under strict supervision. As he grew older, Blanket began carving his own path. In 2015, at just 13, he announced he was changing his name. He no longer wanted to be called Blanket. To him, the name was a source of embarrassment and bullying. Instead, he chose Biggie, a fresh start that symbolized his independence. This wasn't rebellion, it was a young man reclaiming his identity. Unlike his siblings, Biggie preferred privacy. He avoided interviews, stayed off social media, and rarely appeared at public events. For years, fans saw almost nothing of him. But in 2021, he surprised the world by giving his first-ever interview at age 19. Appearing on Good Morning Britain, he didn't talk about music or fame. He spoke about climate change. Biggie had developed a passion for environmental activism, inspired perhaps by his father's humanitarian spirit. His soft but determined words showed maturity far beyond his age. He said, "I do think it's important that we all know about it, and I think my dad would have wanted me to care about the world." Today, Biggie is in his early 20s, reportedly studying film at a prestigious university. Friends describe him as thoughtful, intelligent, and surprisingly down-to-earth despite his unusual upbringing. He isn't chasing stardom or fame. Instead, he seems focused on building a quiet, purposeful life. While his siblings embrace public careers, Biggie remains private, supporting them quietly from behind the scenes. For him, normalcy may be the greatest gift of all. Now let's turn to the eldest child, Prince Jackson. Born on February 13, 1997, Michael Joseph Jackson Jr., better known as Prince, was the first child of Michael and Debbie Rowe. From the moment of his birth, Prince carried a heavy responsibility. Michael often called him the leader of the siblings, expecting him to care for Paris and Blanket. Even in childhood, Prince showed a sense of maturity and responsibility. Life at Neverland was magical for Prince. He had access to animals, amusement parks, and celebrity guests. But Michael also instilled discipline. Prince accompanied his father to studios, rehearsals, and charity events. Michael taught him about hard work, generosity, and responsibility. When Michael died in 2009, 12-year-old Prince was devastated. But he also knew he had to be strong. At the memorial service, he stood beside Paris as she delivered her emotional tribute, holding her hand and comforting her through tears. In that moment, the world saw the protective big brother his father had always wanted him to be. After moving in with Katherine Jackson, Prince focused on school and excelled academically. He developed an early passion for filmmaking, producing short films and documentaries as a teenager. By 2013, he had even worked as a TV correspondent for Entertainment Tonight, covering events like the Cannes Film Festival. His professionalism impressed many. Prince graduated from Loyola Marymount University in 2019 with a degree in business administration, but his true calling remained entertainment and philanthropy. Inspired by Michael's humanitarian work, he founded the Heal Lo's Angels Foundation, dedicated to helping homeless youth and children aging out of foster care. His foundation provides mentorship, resources, and hope to vulnerable young people, just as his father once helped disadvantaged kids around the world. Prince also explored business ventures, including a motorcycle company called Healing Hearts Cycles, blending his love of bikes with his passion for charity. In his personal life, Prince has found stability, dating his girlfriend Molly Skirming since 2017. Their relationship has remained steady and low-profile, a rarity in Hollywood circles. Now in his late 20s, Prince is considered the most well-adjusted of the Jackson children. He's proven himself as a filmmaker, philanthropist, and businessman. He doesn't live in his father's shadow. Instead, he honors Michael's legacy while carving his own independent identity. Next, we turn to Michael's only daughter, Paris Jackson. Paris was born on April 3, 1998, also to Debbie Rowe. As the only girl, she was the apple of Michael's eye. He called her his princess, and she adored him in return. Outgoing, creative, and bold, Paris had a vibrant personality even as a child, but she also bore the weight of being Michael Jackson's daughter. When Michael died in 2009, Paris was only 11. At the memorial, she broke the world's heart when she said through tears, "Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine. I just wanted to say I love him so much." Those words revealed the depth of her grief, and millions of fans felt her pain. But the years that followed were not easy. Paris struggled with depression, bullying, and the pressures of fame. In 2013, at just 15 years old, she attempted suicide, a cry for help that shocked the world. She was hospitalized and placed in treatment, beginning a long and painful journey of recovery. Instead of hiding her struggles, Paris chose to speak openly about them. She admitted she had battled depression, self-harm, and anxiety. "I was crazy. I was actually crazy," she said in later interviews. "I was going through a lot of teen angst, and I was also dealing with my depression and anxiety without any help." Her honesty inspired many, making her a role model for young people struggling with similar issues. After treatment, Paris reinvented herself. She entered the modeling world, signing with IMG Models in 2017 and quickly rising to prominence. Her striking looks, tall, tattooed, and unique, set her apart in high fashion, but her heart was in music. In 2020, she released her debut album, Wilted, a folk rock project praised for its authenticity and emotional depth. Critics recognized her raw talent and originality. nodding that she was not trying to imitate her father, but instead creating her own voice. By this point in the transcript, we've only just begun Paris's story. Paris Jackson's teenage years were a storm of challenges, but they also became the foundation for her resilience. Unlike her brothers, she embraced the spotlight. Paris used her pain as fuel for creativity, channeling her emotions into art, fashion, and music. Her modeling career took off with covers in Rolling Stone, Harper's Bazaar, and Vogue. She walked prestigious runways and became known for her eclectic bohemian style, unafraid to display her many tattoos, which she described as story markers of her journey through darkness and healing. Each tattoo represented a lesson, a scar, or a piece of her father's influence. But Paris never limited herself to just modeling. In 2018, she ventured into acting, starring in films like Gringo alongside Charlize Theron. She also appeared in several television projects, proving her versatility. Yet her greatest passion remained music. In 2020, she released her debut album Wilted. The sound was raw and melancholic, blending folk and indie rock with haunting lyrics about love, loss, and identity. Critics praised her authenticity. One reviewer wrote, "Paris Jackson is not imitating Michael. She is finding her own voice, and it's beautiful." Her music allowed her to step out of her father's shadow while still carrying his artistic spirit. Paris also formed the duo, the Soundflowers, with her then-boyfriend Gabriel Glenn. Their performances were intimate and soulful, showcasing a softer, vulnerable side of her artistry. Though the band later split, Paris carried forward her solo career, continuing to write and perform music that spoke to her personal journey. But beyond her creative work, Paris became a voice for mental health awareness. She openly discussed her struggles with depression, suicidal thoughts, and self-acceptance. By speaking so candidly, she inspired countless young fans who saw themselves in her story. She made it clear that healing is messy but possible. In her 20s, Paris also embraced her identity with courage. She came out publicly as bisexual, advocating for LGBTQ+ representation and inclusivity. She spoke about spirituality, nature, and her deep connection to animals, often crediting her father for teaching her compassion and empathy. Michael had instilled in her a belief in love and acceptance, and she carried that forward. Still, Paris's relationship with her family was not without complications. Growing up under the guardianship of Katherine Jackson and surrounded by the extended Jackson family, Paris often felt conflicted. She loved them deeply but struggled with the pressures and expectations placed on her as Michael's daughter. At times, she rebelled, choosing independence over conformity. Despite the challenges, Paris remained fiercely protective of her brothers. She once said, "They are the only people who know what it was like. Nobody else understands." That bond between Prince Paris and Biggie remains unshakable. They may live different lives, but they share an unbreakable connection rooted in love and survival. Today, the three Jackson children stand as unique individuals with their own voices. Prince Jackson has grown into a responsible leader and philanthropist, carrying his father's humanitarian legacy into the modern world. Through his foundation, he helps vulnerable children, proving that Michael's spirit of generosity lives on. Paris Jackson has transformed pain into art, becoming a bold voice in modeling, music, and mental health advocacy. She honors her father not by copying him, but by fearlessly carving her own creative path. And Biggie Jackson, the once hidden blanket, has emerged as a thoughtful young man with a passion for film and the environment. Quiet, private, yet deeply aware of his place in the world, Biggie represents the side of Michael that longed for peace and normalcy. Together, they embody three aspects of their father. Prince reflects Michael's sense of responsibility, Paris reflects his artistic soul, and Biggie reflects his quiet humanity. It's easy to think of Michael Jackson as only a pop icon, a performer who moonwalked across history. But when we look at his children, we see the other side of him, The father who told bedtime stories, who shielded them from paparazzi, who taught them kindness, and who reminded them that the world could always be made better. Prince Paris and Biggie are not perfect, and their journeys have been filled with pain, struggles, and triumphs. But through them, Michael's greatest legacy continues, not just in music but in humanity, resilience, and love. They prove that while fame can fade and controversy can linger, love endures. And that love, the love of a father who cherished his children more than anything, is what carries them forward today. The story of Michael Jackson's children is not just about celebrity or inheritance. It's about three human beings growing up under the heaviest spotlight in history, navigating grief, identity, and the constant weight of being the king of pop's kids. And yet they remind us of something powerful. They are not defined only by Michael Jackson. They are Prince, Paris, and Biggie, individuals with their own dreams, struggles, and destinies. In their own ways, they carry the torch, sometimes through philanthropy, sometimes through music, sometimes simply by living quietly and authentically. As Prince once said in an interview, "We're proud of who our dad was, but we're also proud of who we are." And in those words, we see the truth. Michael's children are more than a legacy. They are living proof that love, even through pain, can shape something beautiful. If this story moved you, remember, resilience, love, and healing are not just for the children of legends, they are for all of us. Like this video, if you believe Michael's legacy lives on through his children. Subscribe for more untold stories that go beyond the headlines. And share this with someone who needs to hear that no matter where you come from, you can create your own path. Because just like Prince, Paris, and Biggie, we all have the power to rise above our past, carry forward love, and write our own stories.